Good morning. I am in Derbyshire. I'm on my way to get my car mapped. I want a bit more power. So, as part of that, I had a look at some of the historical stuff that was around the area where I'm going, and I found this site. This is the site of a Viking burial ground with 60 Viking barrows. Let's take a look. So picture the scene. 865, the sons of Ragnar Lothbrok, Halfdan Ragnarsson, Ivar the Boneless, and the other one, set sail for the land out west that their ancestors have been coming to for the past 70 years, since the great attack on Lindisfarne in 793. But in 865, they set up something called the Great Heathen Army, a great big coming together of lots of different people from Norway, Denmark, even the Irish, to invade and settle Britain. And so they come over, they land in Thetford, and from there, over the following years, they overwinter, which is unusual. They've not done this before, overwintering. And from there, they slowly move north to a place that the Anglo-Saxons called Eorvik, which was then translated into our language, York. The Vikings obviously knew it as Jorvik. Until they ended up in this area. Obviously this is between York and Thetford, but they moved out west into the Kingdom of Mercia. And there was fierce battles, and just over here, there's a place called Repton. And they were fighting all the time with the local Anglo-Saxons and what was left of the Romano-Britic people, but very little of that remained. I'm very, very glad that I've put my Wellingtons on. I looked at it as I set off and I thought, I won't put my wellies on, but I've put my wellies on. Anyway, I'm trying to be all cinematic. It's not really working, is it? So anyway, down here is apparently 60 or 59 Viking barrows. Burial barrows. Now, some of them are have actually got the remains of the Viking cremations in them, and some of them are what they call cenotaph burials, meaning, I'm looking around for them, meaning that the remains aren't actually in the barrows, but the barrow was built as a memorial to the Viking soldier that died in there. And it's an interesting thing. This was literally right at the time where the old pagan beliefs and the new Christianity were beginning to take hold. So the original cremation burials, they were buried with their swords and the tools of their trade, leatherwork and things like that. But the cenotaph burials, the ones where they're not actually in there, they would be more Christian, and they would be buried at Repton Church. And so Repton was a great sort of stronghold for the Vikings in about 873. And so that's where this actually dates to, around 870 to 873. So it's 1150 years old, something like that. And I believe it's down here. I've literally just looked on the maps and I don't really know where I'm going. So I might have to have another quick look at the maps because I'm not sure that this is right. I might have gone the wrong way, but it's in some woodland somewhere, and I'm obviously in some woodland. This is very beautiful though, look at this. Nice big pond here. Wow, a little waterfall, look at that. Wow, that's pretty. Okay, so I'm gonna have a look at my maps and just work out whether I'm in the place where I think I am. I will be right back. Right, so ignore all that. Well, don't ignore all of that. The story remains the same, but I've gone in exactly the wrong direction. Instead of getting out of the car and jumping out the driver's side, I got out of the car and jumped out the passenger side. I had the map upside down. So I'm going to go back up here about half a mile, and then I'll show you the burial mounds. The story remains the same, but yeah, I'm an idiot, aren't I? Right then, so there's Roxanne. There's where I went wrong, down there. And I'm going in this direction. Right, so let's go back to the beginning then. Vikings, Anglo-Saxons, burials, things like that. That's quite a tight gate. Ouch. Right. And I think from what I've seen, even this little stone alignment here is part of the burials. It's part of the actual Viking burials. There's another one just here, look. That one's a little bit bigger. And it does say that some of them are very small, but some of them are up to 1.5 metres tall. And down here, it's a hazy day. It's no surprise because the planes are out. But down here is Nottingham and Derby and the River Trent. And that plane there is going into East Midlands Airport. Right, it does say there's a bulling field with its calf. Okay, so this is interesting. These are, they look like gate posts almost, but a bit of a strange place to have them. Look at that there. Almost as if you sometimes see the Celtic crosses on top of these. But obviously these people weren't Celtic, they were Vikings. And so this is called Heath Wood. And the army was known as the Great Heathen Army. Heathen was a sort of pejorative term, a rude name, if you like, that the Christians have used, still use really, for people who don't believe in their God. And this is interesting because this is called Heath Wood. There's another one of these little, this could be a burial mound, you see, for one of the Vikings. So there's been quite a lot of archaeological work done in here as well. And they have found the remains of Viking cremations and obviously the grave goods that go with them. Those are now all housed in the Derby Museum, I believe. But yes, this is Heath Wood. This is where the burials are, the main body of the burials. And what a view, eh? Looking out, I mean, it's difficult to see, like I say, because it is so hazy. But down here, you've got Nottingham and Derby. I'm not sure which is which. Can't really see very well from here. But yeah, there's a kennels down there as well. I keep hearing the dogs. But apparently this woodland has only been here since the 17th, 18th century. Before that, it would have been open like the fields around us. And these burials, I don't know what to expect. And some of them apparently are very tall. This is a good time of the year to come looking because the undergrowth is undergrowth rather than overgrowth. Right, Forestry Commission, Heath Wood. Right, let's see what we can see. It'd be really, really peaceful, wouldn't it, if it wasn't for those dogs. Right. So I don't know whether this, when I was reading it did say that near you only really see them close to the path. I mean, it could be this, couldn't it? Let's see if we can see something more obvious in the undergrowth. Right, I'll have a look around and I'll see if I can actually find one of the Viking barrows. Just seen that little building over there, but I also saw some really big deer over here as well. I think they're probably roes, but I don't think you get red deer down here. I don't know enough about deer. But I want to see what this little building is here. But I'll keep the camera rolling in case we see the deer. Oh. What is this? There's the deer. You see them? Running through on the horizon. They've disappeared. There they go. Don't know if you can see them. There they are. Yeah, okay. Anyway, what is this? Hello? Oh, it's probably a deer hide, isn't it? Yeah, it's probably for sitting and shooting at the deer. Oh, okay. Okay, for hunting. Right, anyway. Burial mounds. I mean, there's a mound here. Is this one of the burial mounds? Am I standing atop a burial mound? I thought that was a mushroom then. It's just a very pretty stone. This could well be one of the burial mounds, one of the Viking barrows. Don't know whether this is one of the ones with the cremation remains inside or whether it's a cenotaph one, which is, like I said earlier, it doesn't have, but there's definitely a mound here and it's all dug out. Maybe, sure, I don't know whether archaeologists just dig a hole and then walk away with it, but I thought it was some wild garlic then, but it isn't. This is where the deer just were, look, rutting around. Interesting. But yeah, this is definitely a mound. Maybe this was it. But yeah, so there's known to be 60 memorials here, 60 mounds or 60 burials here. All part of that great invasion that the Vikings brought with them in the late 9th century. Well, mid to late 9th century. The actual invasion really only lasted about 14 years until King Alfred the Great, he didn't drive them out, but it sort of defeated that aggression. And obviously the Danelaw, which is this part of the country, very much so with Derby, any name ending with B is a Danish, or to say Danish, it's part of the Viking language. The Danelaw just sort of settled into itself here on top of what had been the Kingdom of Mercia, one of the 4 major kingdoms before the Vikings turned up. You've got Wessex, Anglia, Mercia, and the other one, never remember, but okay. Yeah, and interesting. I mean, maybe this is it here in the middle. What have we got here then? Okay, maybe this is actually the, okay, is this an actual, it almost looks like a dumping ground, this though, rather than a burial ground. Yeah. Yep. Getting tripped over by the vines and things. I mean, yeah, maybe these are your burial mounds. Maybe I am literally walking over the memorials, essentially the gravestones of those early Vikings. Well, not early Vikings, the late Vikings, I suppose, to this country, before their cousins, the Normans, came from France and invaded again 150 years later. Well, yeah, I think this is probably it, isn't it? Yeah. Okay, so this is like the main part of it. Apparently there's 60 of them, and I'm not seeing much. I'm seeing lots of evidence of deer and deers being hunted, but yeah, so maybe this is it. Maybe this is the sort of the main part. Underneath here lies part of Halfdan Ragnarsson's marauding band of Vikings, or Ivar the Boneless's brothers in arms, or the other one. Now it's an interesting thing when you talk about heritage and lineage. It's a sort of thing in sort of aristocratic circles where you have an heir and a spare. And so Ragnar Lothbrok, he had his heir in Halfdan, which is why he took the name Ragnarsson. And then he had a spare in Ivar the Boneless. And then when it came to the third son, his name was Ubba, which if you look at double B, it can be sort of Uva. So maybe he was just the other son. I don't know. That's just an opinion of mine. I think this is it. I think this is the main body of the burial mound. And the thing is they did actually cremate some of them here. So you can imagine, there were no trees here then either. This is a modern thing. And you can imagine that the Vikings that they'd overwintered for about 6 or 7 years. They knew the British winters. And this is up here as well. It commands such a good view of the surrounding land, and they're still fighting fiercely with the Mercians, the Anglo-Saxons. And but then to actually bury their dead up here, or at least burn their dead up here, shows a bit of ownership, doesn't it? It's no longer, you know, the winter raids for Lindisfarne and Holy Island, all that kind of stuff, and then dashing back over the sea in readiness for winter. Now they're actually putting their footprints, their hands into this country, this land. I mean, that's definitely a mound there. So yes, this is Heath Wood, near Ingleby in Derbyshire. There's another really, really interesting thing in Ingleby that I'm going to look at for another video. But yeah, I think this is probably the main body of it, because going back into here, into the woodland itself, I'm not seeing much. I'll carry on looking around before I sign out, because I've got a tendency to do that. See, there's definitely a mound there as well. There's something there. So yeah, you imagine these battle-hardened, tough men. Not only have they made the crossing over from Scandinavia across the North Sea, which is some of the most treacherous waters in the world, but they've also then gone on to fight these kings and their subjects around Mercia and Wessex and Anglia, and the other one that I can never remember. I'm sure somebody will put it down in the comments. And then slowly putting their feet down on the land, making this all part of the Danelaw, so under the protection of the Danish kings. And so King Rollo, who went down into France, King Canute, who came over from Denmark. And yeah, obviously it really did make an impression upon certainly British history, and like I've said in other videos, you know, it went that continued on to the rest of the world, didn't it? That? Right, I'm not really seeing a great deal else. I'm going to sit in the middle and just enjoy it for a few minutes and try and do some imagination work. But I think that's probably it from a Viking burial ground where 60 Vikings are buried or cremated here in Derbyshire, overlooking the River Trent, which the Vikings would have actually used to get up and down when they first started making their incursions into the country. But by this point they were settled, and that's, you know, literally by remembering their dead in places like this, they're literally putting their feet into the history of the country. And this is the view down here, look. There's a great big house there. I think that's called Cabby, isn't it? Just there. But then in the background you've got the great cooling towers of one of there's two of those. I think the other one might be out of view. But yeah, and just down here is the River Trent, you see. What a place. Having looked about a little more, I'm not sure that central area there is where the mounds are, because this is definitely one of the mounds here. It's actually quite tall. If I come down the side of it, you can see how tall that actually is there. And there is a little bit of stonework in the top, you know, where they would have put on top of the cremation. Is that actually carved? No, I thought that was. But yeah, so this is definitely one of the burial mounds here. There's another little mound just over there as well. But yeah, I'd imagine that where I was thinking in the middle of the woods was the main body of it. I think it's spread throughout the woods. There's a family here. They might know something about it, but they might not. It is the summer holidays, so not the summer holidays, half term. Anyway, let's see if I can see anything else. It's definitely here. The Viking cremation sites are here, but which mounds they are, whether it was that central bit over there, or that one definitely looks like one. I mean, it does say, I've seen somewhere, I've been reading all morning, I've been up really early because I'm excited about getting my car mapped. So I got up really early, I was like, oh, get more power in my car. And I thought, I'll go and have a look at some of these things. And, you know, this is the only Scandinavian sort of Viking cremation barrow cemetery in the country, in the UK. So it's nationally important, and yet there are no signs to tell you what it is, which is a bit of a pity, but I suppose, yeah, I don't know. Why wouldn't you want people coming to look at it? It's a beautiful piece of woodland. Private shooting maybe in progress. Well, that's where when I went over to speak to that family. They weren't a family, but a bloke with 2 kids. When I went over to speak to that family, they were like, "Is that your land?" I went, "No, God, no. No, I'm trespassing." I'm not really though, am I? So yeah, you see. Yeah, it's. I don't know, but whatever. However you look at it, this woodland is the site of the only Scandinavian Viking cemetery in the country. And it's a beautiful place to come. It's a little bit confusing because I can't work out where anything is. But anyway, this is definitely my outro. Thanks very much for watching. I'm going down to something even more interesting. Well, it depends how you think about things. But something is equally as interesting in Ingleby. So I'll see you on the next video. Thank you very much for watching.